everybody. I wish I could be there with you. I'm really happy to be part of this project, and I'm looking forward to meeting many of you face to face in the future. I was asked to talk a little bit about responsible innovation, and I'm happy to do this. I think of responsible innovation as one of actually a cluster of terms. People sometimes talk about anticipatory governance, anticipatory ethics, or just value-sensitive design. The main thrust of that way of thinking, all of these terms, is the idea that we should carefully consider the ethical and social implications of technologies, new and emerging technologies, while they're still in the early stages of development. The old and sort of standard way of thinking was that technology was developed by engineers in relative isolation from the rest of society, and then those technologies were placed in society or delivered to society, and people would react, and sometimes reject, sometimes accept, sometimes call for modifications. So the idea here is that wouldn't it be much better to think about the ethical implications and the values affected right in the stage of development, in the early stage of development, so you can sort of design with the social implications and social effects in mind. This would head off some problems from occurring, but for the most part, the idea is that it would make for better technologies. So that's the simple idea of responsible innovation. Although it seems like a new idea, it's new in the sense that it's an explicit attention to the ethical and value implications of technology. We shouldn't forget that it's not that in the past values and social implications weren't being thought of. They actually were. It's just that in the old way, these things were sort of done implicitly or without much forethought. So the new idea is to do this consciously, conscientiously, and carefully. The first time I remember actually, getting the idea of doing it explicitly was back in the 1980s when environmental concerns were high, and there was a focus at my university on manufacturing, and people began to think that in the process of manufacturing devices, we actually ought to think about designing them so they would have fewer disposable parts, or thinking about the materials in terms of the environment. So that's an example of how it became explicit. But I think it's fair to say that before that, they had been implicitly just assuming that the environment was something that was infinitely available for disposable parts, or didn't have to be taken into account. So it wasn't that ideas about, say, the environment weren't being considered. It's just that they weren't being explicitly or consciously being considered. So if we're going to do responsible innovation, there's a couple things to keep in mind, or a couple things I think that are in the background. The first, and perhaps obvious one, is to recognize that values are embedded in design. Values are embedded in technologies. Technology isn't value neutral. The second idea is that I think that needs a little bit more attention, is to consider that technology isn't just artifacts. Technologies are socio-technical ensembles. They're combinations of people, social relationships, values, systems of knowledge, and so on. So when we're looking at drones for this project, I think it's important for us to remember that drones aren't just the hunks of metal and plastic and mechanical parts, whatever, that we think of as the drone. Drones really are what they are insofar as they're part of some system. So the project, I assume, will be looking at media and drones as a kind of component in media, and therefore, and this is sort of the next idea, it's probably important for us to keep what I call the STS mantra in mind. That's the idea that technology shapes and is shaped by society, or to put it the other way, society shapes, people shape, and are shaped by technology. So when we're looking at drones in the media, we'll be looking at both how drones are being shaped or might be shaped by the media, as well as how the media is being shaped by drones. So if we keep all of that in mind, I think we should see ourselves as having a role in shaping the role of drones in the media, both insofar as we can come to understand how this drones are developing, but also it'll be that we actually will be part of the shaping of the technology. And there I'm thinking of shaping the socio-technical ensemble that is drones. So early intervention, responsible innovation, is a great opportunity for us to shape how drones are used in the media. I think that's all I have time for. I really look forward to shifting from this one-way form of communication to some interactive face-to-face communication in the future. Bye.